We have one more special guest here with us today. We're very grateful for his time. It might be a name that you recognize, especially watching this past season and seasons before, but we have our Giants outfielder, Austin Slater, on the call. So thank you so much, Austin, for taking the time. We really appreciate it. We know you're busy and have, things in the off season you have to take care of, but we also know you have a past that might be helpful for some of these scholars. You played at Stanford and you played a few years there. And so we were curious if you could kind of talk a little bit about what your experience was like in a college baseball setting, and maybe what some of those coaches that you had at Stanford and even prior to Stanford, what kind of influence they had on you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, first off, thank you for having me. Glad to be here and glad to be able to talk to you guys. I think the biggest thing I learned taking away, trying to do sports and, academics in college was, time management, being very resourceful with your time and very deliberate with your time. When you're practicing 5-6 hours a day, it can be stressful when you have a midterm the next day and you get done with practice at 7. And well, if I haven't been studying for the whole week before this, you might not do so great on that exam. So that was something that I definitely took away. And, luckily I had, coaches advising on, first off, what your interests are and what do you want to pursue academically. And then allowing us to pursue those interests. So I think that's the first goal. And, if you don't really know what you want to pursue right away, I think that's totally okay. Taking intro classes freshman fall is totally okay, and not knowing what you want to do by the end of your sophomore year is totally okay. I think everyone has a different path. And the worst thing you can maybe do is commit to something before you actually really know, which honestly is kind of what I did. But luckily I've had time to go back and kind of correct those things.
Definitely. College is a time to learn about so much out there that you'd never been exposed to. And now in your post-college life, and you maybe look back, why do you think academics were so important along with playing baseball?
Well, I think, your sports career is very finite, and to not recognize that, I think is a grave mistake. I might play for another 5 or 10 years, but, I'll have another 40 years after that to pursue other interests. And I think, having a college degree sets you up to more opportunities to pursue whatever, might interest you. You might end up having to go back and take 4 or 5 years of college when you're 35 or 40, and I don't know how many guys are actually going to do that. So it just keeps your options opened, and I think it just creates a more dynamic person. I don't think you want to be a one-dimensional person. I think we're put on this earth to do great things, big things, and athletics might be a small aspect, but I think college and what you pursue academically can open up tons of different avenues.
Definitely. So if you can take one step back and put yourself in your shoes as a high school student where our scholars are right now, is there any advice that you would give to your high school self?
I would say be open to anything. My freshman year, I think, I didn't know baseball was going to work out the way it did, but the way I thought was, what classes should I take to set me up for the best career? So, I was taking a lot of business classes, and, I wasn't really enjoying them, which, I did okay in them, but, I think to really do well in a class, you have to be really, interested in the material, and the curriculum. So I would have told myself, explore what you enjoy and pursue what you enjoy. I think my sister's a perfect example, and I'm a little jealous of her college experience this way. And she was a history major, and minored in science, or no, sorry, minored in Spanish. and those were two things that she loved, and she pursued it. And out of college, she becomes a consultant. How does that add up? But that was something that really interested her at the time. And I think to pigeonhole yourself into taking classes for a career is potentially a mistake, unless you want to do like pre-med or something like that, where it's very specific curriculum. If you have that calling to help people as a doctor or something, I think you might have to decide that a little earlier in college. But the rest of it, I think, is completely up to you on what you pursue and what you do after college.
Awesome. Some great advice there. We have one final question for you. We know this was quite an unusual baseball season, probably one you might have not seen come together. What is there one highlight that you have from this last 2020 season that you could share?
I spent a lot of time like talking not only to ourselves, but our guys in the clubhouse. I mean, and to the union and to people at MLB to try to actually get this thing going. As the player rep, and I think what I was most proud of was the like how guys took this pandemic as an opportunity instead of like oh man, like I can't believe this is happening to us. It was the framing of this entire season that every guy in our clubhouse took. We saw this as an opportunity to play for the first time in over a year, and to really take advantage of that instead of being down on our luck and sad that things aren't normal. I think the framing that we had this season was phenomenal, and I can't really point to one moment. That was my big takeaway from this year is I know things aren't normal. They will be back to normal at some point. I think that's something to keep in mind, but how you deal with it makes a huge difference. How your mental mindset of what's going on right now in the world, you can make anything into a positive, and it's all about mindset. So I think that was my big takeaway this year.
Definitely. Well, you and the rest of the team help bring some normalcy to our lives. I know just watching you guys, hearing the announcers made it seem like baseball. All right, here we go. Things are, somewhat normal again. So thank you for all you did on the team, on the field. Thank you so much for your time right now. We really, really appreciate you taking the time and being here with our scholars. Maybe one day we'll get to meet, in person, have our education day at the ballpark like we normally do. But again, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Of course. Thank you for having me.